And we are live. Welcome, Mystery and Thriller fans. I'm your on-air host, Sara DiVello, and I am so excited to welcome tonight New York Times best-selling author Simone St. James, here to give us the inside scoop on her brand new book out now, Murder Road. Simone, welcome to Mystery and Thriller Mavens. Tell us about this book.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, everyone who's out there at this live stream. This is very exciting. It is. This book is, let's see, what can I say that's not a spoiler? It's set in 1995. It's about a young married couple who are just married the day before. They're going on their honeymoon. They're driving. They take a wrong turn in the middle of the night. They end up on a road in the middle of the night. There's a hitchhiker by the side of the road who needs help. They stop to pick her up, and she has been attacked, and she dies in the back of their car. And from there, they are drawn into this small town mystery, this murder mystery, which includes a stretch of road that they've been driving, which has been haunted for over 20 years, with a string of murders that are unsolved, and a local legend of a ghost on the road. And they get drawn into all that on the first day of being married. And it's a bit of a thrill ride.
It is a big start to a honeymoon.
Yes.
To the thrill-seeking ride that is Murder Road. Yeah. And I am so excited to chat about this with you, Simone. I have so many questions. People have been submitting questions in advance. Okay. Everyone is logging on now, and we are going to get right to it. So sure. I just want to welcome everybody, because we are streaming live to 8 different destinations right now across Facebook and YouTube. So, hey, mystery and thriller loving friends, no matter where you're watching from, you're in the right place. It is the right time. It is Mystery Monday. And because Mondays can be murder, we're going to make it a little less painful and get your week off to a killer start. So if you've been here before, you know the drill. And if you're new, welcome, friends. We're so happy to have you. Here's the drill. Every Monday, I give you my handpicked featured authors, and you get to ask them anything. So ask the New York Times best-selling author of the Book of Cold Cases all about her writing process, her career, her characters. Does she believe in ghosts? You know I'm going to ask that. All the good things. Just get the questions going in the comments. I'll get them right over to her. Okay, I see they're already popping up. Renee is joining us from Facebook. She says, hi, Sara and Simone from Southeast Florida. Hi, Renee. Oh, and before we go any further, I have to say, you guys, we have signed books. I'm so freaking excited. But you know, my partner in crime, Murder by the Book, our favorite woman-owned independent bookstore, has signed copies. Now, what do I always say? Signed books make the best gifts. So I'm going to give you that link so you can get it. Mother's Day's coming up. You know what says Mother's Day? Murder. So get your mitts on this book. Randy joining us from YouTube with that very on-brand black cat. Hi, Randy. Renee wants to know, so do they get stuck in the small town? Renee, come in and hop with the questions. Tell us.
Well, at first they are, because they drive up to the hospital with a dying girl in their back seat, and the cops, of course, are called. And one of the first things the cops do is take their car away because this young woman died in their back seat. So they are stranded. And the cops tell them, hey, don't leave town, and drop them off at this B&B in town with a very nosy and kind of unpleasant B&B owner. And so they are at first genuinely stranded, and they don't really even know where they are. And of course, it's 1995, and they're not just going to Uber anywhere. And so, yes, at first they are stuck. They are definitely stuck.
Oh my gosh. I know. In 1995, I think is now considered, antique. That is now considered historical, Simone, which is crazy. I was living the good life in college then. Yeah. Oh my goodness, it's crazy. Ooh, we have a mystery user in the house saying, I love your books, and I'm so excited to catch this live with Ghost Hearts. I am vibing with this mystery. Barb, joining us from Facebook, says she loved it.
Oh, thank you.
Ooh, Renee wants to know, how did you come up with this book? And I actually wanted to ask that too. Renee, we're vibing.
Well, what came to me first with this book was that first scene. I thought it was interesting because I pictured these two people, and they're driving at night, and you see someone by the side of the road in the middle of the night who might need help. And when you're writing,
mysterious light. They see the light of
Yes,
the
they do
flame.
see a light. And then and it's like 2 o'clock in the morning or something. And of course it's 1995. You don't have a cell phone, you can't call 911, you can't Google anything, you don't have a GPS, and you see someone by the side of the road who maybe needs help. And so the question is, does this character stop or drive by? And once you have that decision made, like that's two types of people right there. So I'm already exploring like who this character is and how they react in certain situations. So I was like, what if you had this situation and then you stopped, and then and then this person needed help, and like, would you, what would you do, and what would these characters do, and what type of people are they? And that just sort of built in my mind. And then I came up with the idea that they were not only married, but they were first married, like they were just married. And that just added a lot of tension and excitement to the idea for me, because when you get married to somebody, like you're in love with them and you know them really well, but you might, on the very first day of marriage, you might not know every single thing about them yet. And both of these characters have things that they haven't told the other one yet. They're kind of waiting for the right time to tell them, tell this person some of this stuff. So the reader gets to know these characters at the same time as they're getting to know each other a little bit. And so that just added a layer to the suspense for me, and it just added a layer to spinning out this story and seeing all the different things that like are going to come up that haven't come up before, the secrets that are going to come out. So that was the first scene that came into my mind, and I just wanted to know where it would go. And then once I figured out who these two characters were, I wanted to know what they were going to do next, and then I wanted to know what I could just throw at them next. And I threw a lot at them.
You sure did. We're getting a lot of hearts up on Facebook. Absolutely. You threw a lot of them. And Renee, thank you for that great question, because I wanted to ask that too. And I think that one thing I noticed was that your use of the 1995 setting, which, as you said, prevented them from Google, from social media,
GPS, yeah.
importantly from GPS, which is
Right.
how they're lost, so they can't just get back to you. And I wanted to tag on to Renee's question. Is that why you said it in 1995, or was there, or are you and I just still living the good days of the 90s?
Yeah, well, I mean, I my research for 1995 was just my memory of it. I had to Google a few things, but I mostly just remembered it, so I remembered it very well. But yeah, it was partly a nostalgia trip, but yeah, it is partly because I thought that setting it pre-cell phone and pre-internet for this particular story would up the suspense. I wanted my characters to be truly lost. I wanted them to be on a road where they don't know what this road is. They don't know if they're going in the right direction. They don't know where they're going. It just adds to the suspense for me and the tension. And then they can't call 911, and they pick up this girl and they still can't call 911, and they have to drive and find a hospital, and they don't know where they are. So, and they're like, the first chapter, like she's trying to unfold the map out of the glove compartment and unfold the big squares of the map. So to me, that just added a layer to the story. It was just more fun to have them not be able to just look things up and Google things and just get out of danger pretty quickly. And I just enjoyed it, partly for the nostalgia, but partly for the storytelling possibilities of doing it that way.
Well, I loved it, and I'm so excited to chat with you about it. We have Michelle joining us from Facebook, said, I need you to come out with at least 4 books a year. I am already through Murder Road, another amazing, ghostly, chilling book. Your writing style consumes me. Consumes me is a great word. Beautifully said, Michelle. Thank you.
That's so nice. Thank you. I can't do 4 books a year. I wish I could, but I would love to, but doesn't work that way.
4 books a month.
Yeah, I know. I would do it if I could.
We have Russ joining us from Facebook saying he loved this book and met you on tour in Massachusetts. Woo!
Oh, yeah.
Yay,
Yeah.
good to have you here with us, Russ. Elizabeth saying, good evening from Kentucky, Sara and Simone. She wants to know, Simone, how did you get your first novel published? Did you have an agent? Okay, yeah, let's talk about the path to publication. Simone, share yours with us.
Sure. I did have an agent, but before that, I wrote 3 entire manuscripts that I sent out that got rejected everywhere. So I spent 6 years writing and submitting and being rejected. So it wasn't just like, oh, I just wrote something and oh, what do you know? It got published. Like, it was not an easy process. It was years in the making. I was working a day job. I was working in the evenings. I did that week in and week out, year in and year out for years. So I got rejected a lot. And then I came up with an idea, and I was at the point where I was like, well, this is just an idea that I like. I don't think anyone's ever going to like it. But I like it. And it was, it was a ghost story, and I didn't know whether anyone would even want to publish a ghost story. I just know I wanted to write it, and I wrote it, and I sent that one out, and I got a lot of rejections on that one. But I got one agent who called me up and said, I love this, and I know where I want to pitch it. And she pitched it to publishing houses, and one of them bought it. So it was a lot of no's, but I just got that one yes, and that one yes just got me in the door. And from there, I just, did that one book, and they wanted another one. And so I just worked my butt off, honestly, for years. But that's I just did it the old school way. I just submitted, and I got a lot of rejections.
Elizabeth, thank you for this question, opening up, I think, a really important topic. And Simone, thank you for your honesty and transparency also about this very important topic, because I think there is, from the outside looking in, this idea that, like, oh my God, it's Simone St. James, and she writes this book, and she's super successful, and she's a New York Times bestselling author, as though you just hatched from an egg and poof, hit the NYT. And that ain't how it works, folks. And I think it's so important that we have this conversation, because I also got rejections, and it's really important that we share this, because the truth of the matter is, this is a rejection filled process. So, and to Elizabeth's point, it's a multi-step process. So as an aspiring author, as a writer, first if you're writing fiction, you write the entirety of your draft. Then you have to do what's called querying agents. And so you have to send a query letter to the agents that you hope will take you on and represent your work. And then you have to hope that someone is like, yes, this is a brilliant idea. I want to work with you, Simone St. James. Yeah. And then they agree to represent you. And then the fun second part of the rejection process begins, where you and your agent, now a team, go out to all the publishing houses, and then you get to get rejected more together as a team. So then once you finally find someone who will represent you, and then you and your agent together find someone who wants to buy the book, then you get to sell the book and publish it, so that people can then reject, or the readers can then reject it.
Yeah. And I will add too that in my case, it was my seventh published book that hit a bestseller list for the first time. So, I mean, I had books coming out, and they were doing okay. They were doing well enough that my publisher wanted me to write another one. If your book does badly enough, your publisher says, please go away. So they didn't do that. But, they were doing well enough that my publisher was like, yeah, please keep going. But they were not on bestseller lists. I wasn't one of those authors who wrote one book, published one book, and was like this runaway success and like movie deals and bestsellers. And like, no. That was my seventh book or eighth book that hit a bestseller list for the first time. So it's not glamorous, but it's a great job, but it's not glamorous the way I think that people on the outside perceive it.
The number of hearts, the floods of hearts that I'm seeing on Facebook are telling me that this is resonating, and this is a really important, necessary conversation. So thank you.
It is. And when you're an author out on book tour, you don't want to be saying negative stuff, because you want to be sounding positive. But at the same time, I don't want anyone to think that like I just sort of dreamed up a story and it just magically got published and hit a bestseller list, because I know there's a lot of aspiring authors out there and writers who are just in those trenches trying to get something done and get something pitched and get something out there. And they're looking at bigger authors, and they're like, how is there something I'm missing? No, there's nothing you're missing. We were all in the trenches. We were all getting rejected. We were all sitting there going, why am I doing this? Should I quit? We all did it. We've all done it.
Robin saying, wow, what an amazing moment to see your name, and Simone sharing, this is her 7th book published and 10th book overall written that took her to that moment. Simone, bring us into the moment when you got the news that you were on the New York Times bestseller list, and that Robin saying, bring us into that moment.
Yeah, it was for my book, The Sundown Motel, which came out in early 2020, came out in February 2020, right before everything shut down. But, and I love that book. A lot of readers I know since then have loved that book, but it was like I did not expect it to hit the New York Times bestseller. Like I said, I had never hit it before, so it was like, why would I expect anything different? I thought it was going to sell pretty well. It has a really cool cover. It has a really cool title, and it's about a haunted motel. I'm like, I think that's cool. I think people should buy this book. And my publisher was really behind it, and they really, were trying to, get my name out there, and they were trying to get, just really promote it. And so we all tried, and then I got this phone call. I was actually away with my husband. I was away for the weekend, and we were out sightseeing all day. And I came back, and I had this phone call, all these phone calls, and I was like, okay. I thought, well, the book probably, maybe it hit, like, because the USA Today bestseller list has 100 spots on it, and the New York Times bestseller list only has 10. So you have like more of a chance of hitting USA Today. I thought, well, maybe I squeaked onto the USA Today list, which is exciting. That's really exciting. And I called back my agent and then my editor, and they were like, no, you hit the New York Times. And I started crying, and my husband thought that something bad had happened, like, because I got all these messages, and I called them back, and like I called somebody, and then I was crying, so he thought someone had died. And I was like, no, I hit the New York Times bestseller list. So yeah, it was an amazing moment. We both still remember it very well, because he was so alarmed at first because I was crying. He thought someone had died. But no one had died. It hit me. It was very overwhelming. It did hit me. Like, I just started crying, like, and I hadn't expected it to happen. So yeah, it was pretty amazing.
Oh my goodness. I love this, especially Renee saying so exciting. Robin saying, heck yeah, I'd be boohooing.
Yeah, it was a great moment. It was just a great moment all around. It was nothing. It was wonderful.
Catherine saying that sounds amazing. Robin saying that's her favorite book. Oh my goodness.
I have a lot of readers say that to me. Yeah.
Yay. And probably nothing like that first time of hitting. Oh my goodness. Okay, we have so many questions. Dory saying she loves this one, Murder Road. She says 5 stars all the way. Thank you, Great. Dory. Robin saying she is starting it tonight, and she has read them all. All right.
Oh wow.
That's in the house. Welcome, Robin. We have Robin saying, hi, Sara and Simone. Just finished her lakeside birthday lunch and time journey. Oh, thanks for joining us on your birthday, Robin. I love that. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Andrea saying, such a great premise for this book. Isn't it such a great idea? I love the premise too, Andrea. Normandy saying, I'm currently reading Murder Road, and it pulled me in right away. Me too, Normandy. Thank you. Oh my goodness, we have so many questions. We're gonna get to them all. Susan saying she hasn't started yet. It sounds fascinating, and she can't wait. Well, Great. Susan, I'm so glad you agree, because y'all, we got signed
copies. I was at Murder by the Book. I signed a giant stack of books. So snap them up.
So that means you can order signed copies from our favorite woman-owned independent bookstore. Again, we got Easter, we got Passover, we got Mother's Day, we got Father's Day, we got birthdays. You know what? You should treat yourself and
treat yourself. It's spring.
Treat yourself. So whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, here is that link to click and order. And the good folks at Murder by the Book, our favorite woman-owned independent bookstore, will send it out to you tomorrow morning. So grab it now. Okay, we've got Tina. She's saying the days of printing off MapQuest and following each step was such an experience. Oh my God, I was just thinking about that. Remember, holding the printout.
Yeah, and you're trying to drive and read the MapQuest directions at the same time, and it was so dangerous. But there was no other way to do it, and you just had to keep driving and reading and flipping, like trying to flip over the printer pages. And of course, your printer ran out of ink, and you couldn't print. Yeah, it was.
Or remember going to AAA and getting the maps?
Yes.
Or the gas station. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, you always had to find a gas station for a map, and the map, you had to unfold. It was absolutely giant. So you always had this giant map, and you were trying to find the right squares. And yeah, it was always a production trying to get around.
Exactly. Angela Lynn says she is loving it. She said the book she bought just came in last night, and she can't put it down. She loves it too. Woohoo! Yes, Angela Lynn, welcome. Angela Lynn, welcome to the conversation. So glad to have you. Tina saying she's so glad you never stop submitting your work, because she is a forever fan of your work.
That's so nice. Thank you.
Tina, you're in the right place. Robin says she still looks the night before heads out. She needs to get her bearing. And it has saved her a few times. And now Robin, it has saved you from murder. So it saved you more than you know. Deanne says, I absolutely love, 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 love your books. Broken Girls got me hooked.
Mm-hmm.
SH saying, loved this book, especially
Yeah,
Rose.
Rose.
She was awesome.
Yeah, Rose is the owner of the B&B in town, and when I first wrote that scene, like I said before, they get dropped off at this B&B because the police took their car. And this woman comes to the door. She owns the B&B, and she's like not impressed. She's like, these people have been dumped in your lap. And she was just supposed to be like a one-line character. Like she just comes on and off. And then as soon as I put her on the page, I thought, well, what's her deal? Like, what's her story? And then I thought, well, if she's the owner of a B&B in this town, she probably knows a heck of a lot of gossip. So I thought, well, this character's going to come back, and we're gonna see what she knows and what her life is and what her story is. And so I was just intrigued by her. So I didn't plan for her to be really a secondary character until she showed up on the page, and then I decided to make her a secondary character, and she was so fun to write. I adored her, even though she's a little prickly, but she's got her reasons for being prickly, which you do find out. So a lot of readers really responded to Rose, which is funny because
And the flurries of hearts, the sprays of hearts I'm just seeing on Facebook is letting me know that even more people.
I did not think readers would respond to her quite as much, because when I went on tour and readers were like coming up and they were like, I loved Rose so much, and I was like, really? Are you sure? Because she's kind of mean. I think that's what they like about her.
Oh, that's so interesting. Deanne, welcome to the conversation. I can't wait to read Murder Road next month. I'm so excited for it. Yay, Deanne. Laurel said she snuck into the interview late and caught the inspiration of your path to publication. It's so inspiring, right, Laurel? I felt really uplifted by that too. Angela Lynn says, I'm addicted to your books. I look forward to them coming out. I am so excited you kept pushing and pushing and did what you do. Yes.
Thank you.
Tina saying the beauty and strength of pushing through rejections rather than accepting them as the end of the road. Amen, sister.
Not easy to do.
Yay. Michelle wants to know, which of your books would you say was your favorite?
I get asked this a lot. This is an interesting question. I don't have a clear favorite, because my experience of the books is like different from a reader's, because I'm remembering where I was at when I was writing it. And I think Sundown Motel is a special book. It felt special a little bit when I was writing it, and then it was the first one to hit a list, and then I get so many readers who say that they loved it so much. So that was a pretty special book. Like, I don't have a clear favorite though. My first book is one of my favorites because it was that first book that got published. It was very special to me. But I love all my books, and I'm writing a new book, and I love that one. Like, with the one I'm working on is always kind of my favorite because I'm sort of into it. So, I love all my books, but I don't think I have a clear winner of the favorite.
Thanks for the great question, Michelle. Barb wants to know, do you have any ideas for your next book?
Yeah, my next book is in the works. I don't have a title. I don't have a release date yet, but it's coming. It's about 3 siblings whose little brother disappeared 20 years ago, so they have to go back to the house they grew up in to find out once and for all what happened to their little brother. And that's all I'll say.
Ooh.
It has ghosts in it. All my books have ghosts in them. So there's a haunting for sure.
All right. Well, let's talk about those ghosts, because all of your books do have ghosts in them.
Yes.
So, Simone, what's the obsession? Have you seen ghosts? Do you live with ghosts? Why do you write? Why does every book you write have a ghost in it? We need to know.
Well, I have not seen a ghost. I believe they're possible. I believe almost anything is possible. So, I haven't seen one, but the idea of ghosts actually really scares me. Like, I find it terrifying. And so I write things that scare me, and it's a way for me to work through topics that scare me and work through my own fears. And it's entertaining and it's fun for readers who, have the same fears or just a fascination with it. So yeah, I just love ghost stories. I find them creepy and cool and exciting. And when I started writing them, the classic tradition of ghost stories, people weren't really writing them anymore. They got rolled into horror, and I don't really write horror. And I wanted to mix ghost stories with other things like romance and true crime and suspense and mystery. And I didn't just want to make it like a horror. I wanted to make a ghost story part of a bunch of other genres rolled in, and I couldn't find that, so I wrote it, and I still write it. So I just enjoy that, and I enjoy writing it because when you add ghosts into a story, you can just add that fantastical element that there's that one little part of your plot where you're not married to reality and you just get to make up whatever it is and you just get to make up how it goes and you get to make up the rules and you get to it's just whatever once you want to happen is what happens. And so I like adding that element to the realistic plot. Like you have your realistic plot line and then you just have your sort of fantastical paranormal element to it, and I just really enjoy that mix, and I haven't gotten tired of it yet.
It is interesting how ghost stories have gotten more rolled into horror,
Yeah.
um, as though ghosts are horrifying. But again, being old enough to have lived through the 90s,
Yeah.
like ghost stories used to be bigger than horror and transcending horror and
Yeah.
frankly, not horror.
Right, and one of the things I wanted to recreate with this book was that feeling of when you watch, like, a really good episode of The X-Files or Supernatural or Buffy the Vampire Slayer, or, like, that we had so much fun supernatural stuff in the '90s, and it wasn't necessarily horror. There were some episodes that were kind of horror, some X-Files episodes were horror, but not all of it. Some of it was sci-fi, some of The X-Files was sci-fi, and some of it was a whole bunch of other stuff rolled in, and was just really creative with the paranormal stuff. And we had all those shows that where you had really fun paranormal stuff happening, and they don't make it so much anymore. And so I just wanted that to recreate that feeling of watching like one of those shows, and the fun that those writers had with paranormal.
It's weird, isn't it, that paranormal fell out because, like you said, there was so many.
Yeah.
Um, Amy saying, "Oops, why isn't that coming up?" Amy saying, "I want more like Maddie Claire. I love that book the best."
Yeah, that's my very first book, The Haunting of Maddie Claire. That's the one that got me an agent and a book deal. And that one is set in 1920s England, and it's about a young woman who works for a temp agency, and she's like broke, and she's working for this temp agency, and the temp agency assigns her to assist a ghost hunter on a ghost hunt. And so I came up with that idea, and I was like, well, what would happen? Again, like it was like, what happened? Like, is there a ghost? Is the ghost real? Oh, heck yeah, the ghost is real. So what's the story? So I just pursued that because I thought that was really interesting and creepy. And there's like romance subplot in there, and I just tossed all the things that I really enjoyed into it, and it ended up working.
Well, clearly, I am a fan of 1920. I'm pointing the wrong way of 1920s books. And
Yeah,
before I started writing my 1920s book, Broadway Butterfly, I didn't know anything about the 1920s, and well, I knew very little. And
yeah,
I am obsessed with the 1920s now. It is such a
yeah.
fun, sexy, interesting, fabulous
It's fascinating
transformational
because
time.
it's a fascinating decade because it is so fun, like, and the fashion is beautiful and the music is cool and there's the movies were so cool, but it has a real dark underside to it because that generation had come out of World War One, and a lot of people had died and a lot of people had lost people, and there was after World War One there was a gigantic worldwide influenza, and like a lot of people had lost people, and so the fun they were having in the 20s was kind of like a response to that, where they were like, well, we could all just die, so let's just party. And so when you get into the 20s, like it is a really, wrote several books in that era, although mine were set in England, but it was a really fascinating era because those young people you see like in the 20s with the dresses and the hats and everything, like they'd all come out of World War One and the worldwide influenza outbreak, and they were partying after some pretty grim times, and it's really fascinating era.
It is. And I think what is even more fascinating is the similarities, the eerie similarities between the 1920s and the 2020s,
Yeah,
because we, like you said, coming off the Spanish flu, which took another 500,000 American lives, coming
yeah,
off of the heels of World War One, which took many more hundreds of thousands of lives.
right,
And in obviously the 2020s, we're coming off of the second global pandemic of the
right.
COVID flu, and then also politically things are really eerily similar as well. And so
Mhm.
I find it especially fascinating that 100 years later we're really sort of living through almost everything again.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I wrote, I think, 5 books set in 1920s England. So I spent a great deal of time in that era, and then I just sort of moved out of it because I'd sort of explored everything I wanted to explore in that time. But I was in there for quite a while. I really enjoyed the 20s. I love the fashion too. My God, the fashion's so beautiful. It was fun to write about the fashion.
It's nice. Yeah, exactly. And it's nice, I think, for women to be out of corsets and able to breathe for the first time.
And
It's
the hats
nice
and
when
the
you can breathe.
dresses and the heels and the silks and the stockings
The
and all
hats.
of it. The jewels. It was great.
Oh,
Beautiful era.
Tina saying the reaction of partners worldwide that come home to an avid reader crying when nothing wrong. Exactly. Dory saying the Sundown Motel was fantastic. Are any of your books opted for film? Murder Road would be fantastic.
Um, it's in various processes. What they do is they option it, which means that they're just sort of like putting a hold on it so that you can't go to anybody else while they try and figure out whether they can get it made. But nothing is going into production at this point. And we just had COVID, and then there was a big strike, so there's a lot, like years long delays in a lot of these deals. Like if something hadn't already been set to go into production, there's like been like years long delays in getting things moving into production. But so there's various sort of interest, but nothing is getting ready to go into production. But I would love that. I would love that so much for any of my books. That would be amazing, but it's not quite there yet.
But Dory's raising, I think, a really good point, which is that you write so evocatively and so visually that we can all picture it as films as we're reading. So, Dory,
Right.
thank you for the great comments. Tina saying, I love your energy and your personality, Simone. I hope you do book tours. Well, on that note, Tina, Simone is actually in the middle of a book tour, which is why we have signed books, you guys, from our favorite.
I did a book tour. Well, I just got home, but I did do quite a few stops, and one of them was Murder by the Book, where I signed a giant stack of books that they still have. So
Yay. And that is our lucky day because we now have those access to those signed books. So
yeah,
again, I always say that signed books make the very best gifts. I
they do.
stockpile gifts all year round so that when the holidays come, I don't have to do all that last minute shopping because I got a closet full of fabulous books.
Yeah.
So here again is that link, whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, click and order now, and the good folks at the bookstore will send this out to you first thing tomorrow morning. Okay, let's see what else. Michelle saying Silence for the Dead is her absolute favorite book. John joining us from Northeast Ohio saying greetings. Hi, John. Laurel saying, where is your favorite place to write? Do you have a special space, or atmosphere for optimal focus?
Well, I don't have a favorite space. I mean, I always write at home because for me personally, I need either absolute silence or like white noise. So I can't work in a coffee shop. Some writers love it. Some writers can go out in public, work in the park, work in a coffee shop, and that's kind of how they thrive. That's not how I thrive. I can't do it. So I like either quiet or I have my headphones, and I could put in like, usually it's like a rainstorm loop or a thunderstorm loop is my best for focus for me. And I get that thunderstorm going in my white noise in my headphones, and that's when I get into my writing flow. So I don't have a specific space. Like I said before, like I started writing while I was working full time, and I was like getting rejected, and I did that for years and years and years. So like I did not have an office. I was working I was working on my commuter train on my lunch breaks. I was working like grabbing a few scraps of minutes in the evenings and early mornings. So I didn't have this lovely big office to work in. I was just like on the go working however I could work. So I got very used to that. But so what works for me is the headphones and the blocking up the sound, and then I can write almost anywhere, like, visually almost anywhere. I can write on a train, I can write on an airplane, I can write wherever, as long as I can block out sound. That's just me. Every creative process is different.
I'm the same. I need silence, or I listen to either a storm or bird song in nature.
Bird song I've not tried. I have another one that's it's just the sound of it's just the sound of an oscillating fan. So it's just that buzz of an oscillating fan. Hey, like whatever gets the job done, right? I was like, I can't believe I'm listening to the recorded sound of an oscillating fan, but here we are, and that's how the book gets done.
Imagine the person recording it saying, the sound of an oscillating fan.
There is one on YouTube. It's an oscillating fan, and it's something like 10 hours long. So someone literally just put a camera in front of their oscillating fan for 10 hours and uploaded it. And it's got like, over the years, it's been up for years and years. It's gotten like millions of views over the years. So somebody's made a few bucks off of their fan.
Oh my God, we're getting all these laughing emojis on Facebook.
Very creative.
That is hilarious.
Some of those views are from me. Views for the oscillating fan.
3,998,288 from Simone.
It's just me.
Oh my God, I love it. Renee wants to know, do you have siblings, Simone?
Oh, yeah, I do. I'm the youngest of 3. I have an older brother and an older sister. I do.
Tina's saying, I was going to say something similar to the question of who is the favorite child.
Yeah, right. That's exactly it. I mean,
oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, I love it. Tina's sharing our reminiscing for the 90s, saying
Ghostbusters, one of my favorite movies growing up.
Casper. Exactly. Yeah. We're vibing with all of this. Laurel saying even earlier with the ghost in Mrs. Moore. I remember that. I love that. Yeah. Amy wants to know, will you ever write books further back in time again, like Maddie Claire and Silence for the Dead? Are you going to stay in the 90s?
Well, I don't know. Never say never. I go wherever my creativity takes me. And like I say, I spent a long time in the 1920s. And by the time I moved out, it was just because I just kind of explored everything I wanted to explore in that era. But, I've moved around since then. Like The Broken Girls, which came after that, had a dual timeline, but the past timeline was 1950s Vermont. And then after that was Sundown Motel, which had a timeline in 1982. And then The Book of Cold Cases had a timeline in the 1970s, and this one is the 1990s. So like, I'm not really married to any one timeline. It's whatever sort of comes to me creatively and whatever I feel works best for the story, and kind of just how I see it when the story comes to me. I don't have any immediate plans to write something that's further back at this point, but I mean, it's wherever inspiration takes me, it's where I go.
She must follow the muse.
I do.
Elizabeth saying, do you think that horror novels these days have gotten too gory as opposed to being eerie? Great question, Elizabeth.
Well, I grew up on Stephen King, so horror novels have always been gory to me since the 80s. I don't know. I do love Stephen King. I grew up reading him, but I don't read a lot of horror. I can't really stomach the really intense horror. It's just not my thing, which is why I write the books that I want to read, which is kind of like, I want something that's creepy and spine tingling, but it doesn't need to be really violent for me to enjoy it. And so that's just what I want to read. So I don't read a lot of horror. Like, I can't really stomach it, actually, because like I say, I write about the stuff that frightens me. So horror is too much for me.
Alan, welcome to the conversation, saying, I love your books. Alan, welcome. Robin saying, if you like Maddie Claire, read An Inquiry into Life and Death. Great point. Tina saying her coworker, a social worker, actually does ghost hunting adventures like Maddie Claire. So it's appreciated to see a story like yours come to life. Such an interesting career.
Well, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, you guys, we are actually out of time. We're over time. Time flies when you're having this much fun. Robin saying, she wanted to know, where did you go on book tour that you have never been before?
I went the one place I hadn't been before. Well, I hadn't been to An Unlikely Story in Massachusetts before, and the other place I hadn't been at all before was St. Louis. I went to a Novel Neighbor bookstore in St. Louis. I'd never been to St. Louis before. It was lovely. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed both places. So yeah, those were both new to me. Yeah.
Alan wants to know, how often do you experience writer's block, and how do you like to work through it?
Yeah, writer's block, I think it's pretty common. I mean, different writers call it different things. But really what I do is that you just have to, it means you just written yourself into a corner, and you got to step back and maybe think about where you took a wrong turn. And then sometimes I get out my notebook and I just write notes, or I write ideas, or I write doodles, or I make a map of the setting, or like just whatever loosens things up. And then I give it a little bit of time to cook a little bit. And I think, oh, okay, I know where I went wrong. And usually it means I have to go back and revise something that I put in there that just isn't working. And that's why I'm stuck. So it really is just like giving it a couple days time and thinking it over for a bit, maybe switching gears, doing a little reading sometimes shakes things loose. And you feel like you're slacking off because you're like, oh, I'm not writing, but like you're actually figuring out your own problem, and then you go back and you fix it, and then you're on your way again.
What is really interesting is that Alan asked that, and almost at exactly the same moment, Heather also asked that exact same thing. So I think we're all wondering, right? Because I'm feeling I get stuck too. So this is such an interesting and applicable topic for all us creatives in the house. Thank you so much for all these great comments. Oh my gosh, you guys, we have so many questions, but we're not going to be able to get to all of them. I'm so sorry. Let's try to speed through a few. Heather wants to know, what are some of your favorite books and what genres do you like to read?
I read everything. I don't read a lot of thrillers because I like to keep my own ideas fresh. I read nonfiction, I read romance, I read sci-fi, I read all kinds of stuff. And I mean I still love Stephen King. I read Stephen King. And then I read a book last year. If you like ghost stories, I read a book last year called The Hacienda. I don't know if you know this one, Isabella Cañas. And it's set in 1800s Mexico, and it's haunted.
Ooh. Oh, I do know about that one because actually Danielle Trissoni, who I interviewed when her book came out, she actually just recommended Isabel's book, and I just saw Isabel also blurbed your book.
Yes.
So yeah, great recommendation there.
Yeah, that's a really good ghost story. That was a really good ghost story, and it had a romance in it, which is my thing. So I mean, it was fantastic. It's so well written.
And interestingly, Michelle also asked that exact same questions. And she says, she wants to know because she's looking for an author with your similar writing style, but she can't find one while she's waiting for that next book.
I don't know any writers who write like I do. That's why I have to keep doing it because it's what I like to read.
Tina wants to know if your siblings read your books.
My sister does. Yes. My brother very loyally buys the book, and I think he means well, but I don't think he ever gets to it, but he's very supportive. My siblings are both very supportive, but my sister does read it. My sister read this one. Of course, she's older than me. She remembers the 90s as well as I do. So she read it, and like she had all these like really like favorite parts, like especially to do with the time period, and like we talked about like our favorite parts of the time period. So yeah, she definitely does.
Katie wants to know, are there any creepy books that you're reading and loving right now? Isabel, the creepy one? Would you say Isabel's book is creepy?
That's a ghost story. That's an absolute ghost story with an exorcism and everything in it. The Hacienda, it's called. That's a really good one. And then I read another one last year called The September House, which is another haunted house story. That was by a debut author. Carissa Orlando is the author's name. That was a very scary ghost story book. Yeah, that's a good one.
And Carissa Orlando also blurbed your book, weighing in with some lovely praise, is saying that Murder Road hits the gas and doesn't let up. Full of secrets, twists, and turns, Simone St. James takes you on a supernatural road trip you are unlikely to forget. I absolutely loved that. Russ saying Rose was a fascinating character in Murder Road.
Another one. Rose just really hit a note with everybody.
But she turned out awesome as the story evolved. Yeah. Melissa, welcome to the conversation, saying, I think of your books in two eras, and I'm wondering what the transition was like into The Broken Girls from your earlier style. Great question. Last question.
Yeah, that was like I said before, I'd done 5 books in 1920s England, and I was just sort of I'd explored it, and I wanted to move to an American setting, and I wanted to move to a little bit later in the 20th century setting, and I thought, well, there's lots of great haunted places in America, but like, what's one haunted place in America? Well, New England. New England's pretty haunted. So I moved it to 1950s Vermont, and it was challenging, but it was a really good, refreshing change. I really needed the change, and it really just boosted my creativity a lot.
Ooh, you know who, I'm blanking on who asked it because we're getting so many questions, but while you're waiting for Simone's next book, speaking of creepy haunted Vermont, there is I think she's technically categorized as horror per our earlier conversation, where ghosts equal horror now, but she is one of my favorite Vermont based writers, and she wrote My Darling Girl, and let me pull up the link. And all of her books are based in Vermont, and her books also have ghost. Her name, of course, is Jennifer McMahon. She's been on the
show. Jennifer McMahon, of course. Yes, I've met Jennifer. She is a very, very good writer.
She's a very good writer.
Creepy books. Yeah.
She writes creepy books. And speaking of Haunted Vermont, so to the person who just asked, I'm so sorry, I'm blanking your name because they're coming in so fast I can't keep up. But check out Jennifer Mahan. Check out the Drowning,
the Winter People, the Winter People,
the House on the Hill, and My Darling Girl.
Yeah.
Okay, Heather saying, I love your books. My first one and my favorite is The Broken Girls. Leah saying, I wouldn't complain if you wrote another 1920s novel. I love all of your books, including the newer ones. Y'all, we could go on and on. We could talk to Simone all night, but we are over time, so we're going to have to wrap it up. But Simone, when your next book comes out, you have to come back and talk to us.
I will.
So excited to chat with you then. And y'all, I'll be back at the top of the hour with Heather Gudenkopf. So go get yourself a drink, a snack, and I will see you then. Simone St. James, thank you so much for coming in and giving us the inside scoop on Murder Road. Y'all, we got signed books. So grab yours now and support woman-owned independent bookstore, Murder by the Book. Here is that link. Simone St. James, thank you so much for coming on, and we will see you next time.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, everyone.